Wes, I don't know if you knew this, but this is a very momentous occasion for Star Trek Enterprise. Can you guess what it might be?
Is it the 27th consecutive 2 in a row that we've run into? Or is there some...
Well, not only that, but it does feature the first direct crossover with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, who's the Buffy reference?
The sexy alien that Hoshi gets it on with played Dracula on season 5, episode 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was a very important episode for me when I was younger as a big Buffy fan and a big Dracula fan.
Huh. Interesting. So he's all the way in season 5, this vampire shows, or Dracula shows up in Buffy. Yeah, so he's not a main cast.
And it was, the funny thing about it was actually, it's really weird. It's like the only time they've ever done this, because at the same time, the same year, this was 2 years before Enterprise, this guy, Rudolph, I can't remember his last name. I looked it up, but I forgot it. He was playing Dracula in a TV movie that was supposed to be the quote-unquote true story of Dracula. And so it was this weird cross-promotion. I think it was a Fox movie, so I think it was a cross-promotion because Buffy was technically still partially involved with 20th Century Fox in some way.
Yep.
So he played Dracula the human in this TV movie and then played Dracula the vampire on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He's got a calling, and he found it. And then he plays...
Yes, apparently.
Then he plays middlingly sexy alien in the third.
I think.
Let's go to Risa.
Sexy's a stretch, I think. Sexy. But
we'll talk about it, I suppose. It took us
unless you find this face sexy. And if you can't, the people listening couldn't see that, but it was hilarious.
It works visually. Yeah. It took 3 episodes, but we finally made it to the end of the Journey to Risa arc. And it's 2 days and 2 nights. So we're going to take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode that YouTube will ban, probably, God damn you, and then we'll come back and we'll break down 2 days and 2 nights.
I hope she didn't hurt...
Porthos.
Hello, Porthos. She's been cooped up for weeks. I should have known she'd run off the first chance she got.
No harm done. She probably just came over to make a friend. I'm Jonathan.
Kayla.
So is this your first time to Risa?
Yes. You?
First time. My science officer felt I needed to relax, so I decided to do some reading, let Porthos run on the beach.
You should always listen to your science officer.
She'd be the first to agree with you.
All right, everybody. So 2 days and 2 nights is the 25th episode of the first season. It's the penultimate episode. It aired on May 15th, 2002. In the Temporal Cold War arc, it's episode 4 of 13. In the Journey to Risa arc, it's the 3rd of 3. Teleplay.
It's just such a stretch to call this part of the Temporal Cold War arc.
I know. I'm sure we'll get into it, but think about it. In a better way to think of it is maybe that it knocks one of the remaining 13 episodes, not 13, but remaining 6 or whatever episodes off the table. So. It's the 3rd of 3 in the Journey to Risa. Teleplay goes to Chris Black. Story credit goes to Rick Berman and Brennan Braga. Directed by Michael Dorn, which is nice. In-universe date is February 18th, 2152. In this episode, the crew takes shore leave on the famous pleasure planet of Risa. For many, it is anything but a vacation. Which is true. Some of them have stressful times. I think this is Risa's never really done well in Star Trek. There's the DS9 episode where they go to Risa, which is like reviled, and we gave it both ones. It's for those for whoever is that without sin or whatever the title of that episode is, where Worf joins the terrorist cult because he doesn't like to go to vacations.
I completely forgot. The only thing I can remember from that episode is the appreciating the fairly progressive stance on breakups that Dax and Bashir have, where they're like, yeah, we're breaking up, so we're going to both go to this planet and screw everybody.
It was great. Bashir and
sorry, not Dax.
What's Lita?
Lita, that's who it was. Yes.
Yeah. So they broke up and just kind of got it on. Although this episode has a fair share of somewhat progressive sexuality in that it features Hoshi getting laid, which is nice.
Yeah, but it also features a lot of watch out, that lady might have a dick jokes in it. So kind of not really tipping the scale there.
You can't just leap in, you can't leap into the future. It's one foot straddling this side, one side straddling the other.
I know it's unfair to say this because 2002, it's not like it was 1975 or 1950 or something. People should have known better at this point. But at that point, it's still like you weren't calling people by certain expletives that I won't repeat as much anymore. I guess some people were. But you were still getting jokes like this in fairly popular things. I was actually just watching the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man last night.
Yep.
And I completely forgot that one of the jokes that the quips that he throws at Macho Man in the wrestling scene is he says, "That's a really nice outfit. Did your husband make it for you?" Yeah. You don't do that anymore.
No, you don't.
It was in the year 2000 and 2002. It was still they hadn't crossed that bridge yet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, it's yeah, they have a couple lines about that, mostly centering around the.
Can I talk about that for 1 second? I'm sorry, I'm taking us way off course here. But what I find interesting about that joke is that it is not appropriate.
The Raimi one or the
the Raimi one. Yeah. It's not appropriate, but it would have worked just as well as if you had said, "That's a really nice outfit. Did your wife make it for you?" Because it's belittling either way. It's taking a shot at his masculinity either way. So I don't know. I think you could have done it in a way that was less, offensive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but
yeah, I mean, to call into question Macho Man's, or Bonesaw's as he's known in the movie, sense of style is definitely hitting below the belt. Especially, I mean, yeah, I don't remember anything after. It's also it's funny how that stuff is kind of surprising when you go back and watch it. Like it didn't like ring a bell at all, or you didn't notice it at all when it was coming out. But now it's like it's the only thing you can really notice. It's really strange how quickly stuff like that has changed for the better. But it's it's remarkable that. And just how reliable, quote unquote, a joke it was. Like it's just like if you had a problem, you're just like, I'm just gonna put this in now, and this will be the joke, and it'll all work.
I do have to say, even at the time though, I remember thinking like, Spider-Man is known for his quips and his humor in the face of danger like this. This is not his best material. Yeah. I remember even seeing that movie going like, they were taking a swing at it. They should have got like Patton Oswalt or something to take a pass at the script because it's not very good.
He was just starting
as far
at
as
that
that.
He wasn't in his skin tight costume. He didn't have his quips down or anything like that. He was dealing with stress in different ways, I guess. Poor Peter Parker.
Anyway, sorry for the tangent.
2 Days and 2 Nights. I don't know where you want to start with this. I guess I was going to open it up with the Risa thought. Risa's been featured in a few episodes, including that DS9 episode. It was in Captain's Holiday, which is the TNG episode where Picard goes and meets Vash and has a little adventure on Risa. I think this one mostly fails because this version of Risa looks like a middle brow Holiday Inn that these people are staying at. It really looks cheap and really terrible.
It looks like, do you remember, I don't listen to the radio much anymore, so maybe they don't do it as much, but do you remember back like around the time we were in high school, they would always have commercials on like AAF or BCN for hedonism? Or Hedonism 2.
Yes, I do.
Which is supposed to be like the place to go in the Caribbean or whatever, where it was just like drinks and sex.
And rock and roll.
This is what I imagine. Yeah. Their depiction of Risa in this is what I imagine hedonism was actually like, where it was just like some middle level condos, one club that was not really that interesting, and like an extensive wine cellar.
Yes, yeah, no wine cellar. I think wine cellar is raising the bar a little bit. Yeah, it would be an extensive collection of boxes of wine. I think would be what they would have. That's. I mean, this episode has a lot of problems, and a lot of them are kind of like Enterprise problems. It seems to be at this point, but the production. Quality and the production value seem really low on this one. And I was looking at Memory Alpha, and the writer Chris Black was, I keep saying Brack, but Chris Black was complaining that they had no money at this point and they just couldn't do Rise. Like they are, they're at this island resort and no one ever goes to the beach in this episode.
Right.
You know, it's like
Yes, yeah.
Archer sits around in his hotel room the entire time, which I've actually never felt closer to Archer here, where he's just like, I'm gonna hang out in my hotel room, guys, and take it easy. Although maybe that's a good place to start. Archer, this episode to me really highlighted how I think Archer is just not well thought out as a character here, because I don't understand why Archer, as the captain of this NX-01 ship that's going places that no one has ever been, is in the mold of Picard, where he wants to sit around and read on his vacation. You know, like
Right.
that's a Picard trait. And Archer, I don't think Archer should really be that captain. Archer should be much more of the Kirk, which we talked about before. He should be much more in line with what Kirk would do on vacation. And this is not what Kirk would do, I don't think.
Yeah, or at the very least, he should be looking for a pickup water polo game somewhere.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
excited to check out the sport down there called bok cha or some bullshit, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird that he's just I there's a line in the episode was actually something that I was thinking was, you've got him, he's got a book, it's like, okay, he's fine, he's gonna read, I understand that, I don't like the beach either, the beach sucks, but then he's out there looking through this telescope up at the stars, and I was thinking, what the fuck are you looking at the stars for, man? That's what you just came from. And then the woman asked him the same thing, and he's like, I can't get enough of them. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it's just
I wouldn't write Archer this way. I wouldn't write Archer this way.
No.
And I don't know if him being this way is because he's beholden to whatever the hell they thought they were doing with his storyline, that they're like, he has to just stay inside and not be interested in going outside.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, his storyline is the weak point to me. But I think it just fundamentally is it's weak because it has no resolution and doesn't mean anything. But it's also weak because Archer is not exciting enough as a character in this episode to make you even ignore the fact that it has no resolution. It's like the journey is boring and there is no end to it. It just goes. And but it's crazy.
I'll be honest with you. This was another one where I was kind of disappointed that something happened. I didn't mind.
You wanted him just to have
actually.
casual sex and have a firm handshake goodbye and say have a good one.
No, I don't know. There was like something about him meeting someone and they were just kind of having a nice time. You know, whether or not they sleep together is irrelevant. But like I don't know. I just kind of enjoyed that bit of the story. And then when they finally give you the turn at the end, which is probably one of the lamest things they've ever done in this show up to this point, it was really underwhelming.
Yeah.
But just to speak to how he should, it's strange to me that they present him the way they present him after setting up the fact that he doesn't really want to go down there, and he's clearly going to be restless, and he clearly would be more comfortable on the ship.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they don't present him and his story as being more restless in his room. You know, the only reason that he meets this woman is by complete happenstance. Like he doesn't actively engage in basically any part of this story.
Yep.
And
the woman just throws her dog
weird.
up to the balcony.
Yeah, inexplicably she just like hook shots her dog up onto his balcony. But it's just strange how it's another instance of them kind of forgetting one part of the story they're trying to tell, where in this case they give you the piece at the beginning where he's conflicted about going down and he is restless and whatnot, but then when he finally gets down there, none of that stuff has no follow through.
Right.
Or they could have gone the other way, where his restlessness and his inability to shut off filters through into how he reacts to this woman, where he starts thinking that she's some sort of I can't remember the name of the race that he thinks that she is.
Tendarans or something. The
Tendarans. That he starts, like the classic comedy bit where he thinks she's a vampire, but she's not, but she starts treating her like a vampire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That thing where and ultimately he makes a fool out of himself because he can't shut his brain off.
Right. He can't relax on his vacation, and he's seeing Suliban everywhere.
Exactly.
And
they don't do that. They just kind of have a nice, relaxing adult contemporary evening.
They do. I mean,
Also, why does he go to the boat place by himself that
I know
first night?
the first day.
Yeah, she's like, I can't go tonight, but that sounds lovely. I'd love to go with you tomorrow. And then he's like, by the way, it was great alone.
But what's interesting is that I'm now sort of seeing the series for something where when he said that, I was watching it as a viewer go, they're not going to explain why she doesn't go with him. And they don't. And a couple scenes later, it's just like, yeah, I knew that. Like there's no reason why she couldn't just go that first night and sort of kickstart this relationship.
Hey, man, she's clearly got plans.
Things going on. She's got a Comer dog's mohawk hair. The great close up work of the dogs.
Oh yeah, the dog close ups are very good.
They knew it was good too because they did it multiple times to go back to it.
Yeah, they got like a solid 15 seconds of angry Porthos that they used a few times. That was very good.
I think this episode this one really suffers from to be like just sort of like blunt about it or whatever. It's like there's no meaning to this episode. There's no theme that connects any of these stories with each other. And by the end, I don't know if they're trying to rescue something where they're saying that it's a vacation that none of them got what they expected out of it, and it's almost interesting at the end where none of them tell anyone else what happened to them really on this vacation. Like that's almost something. But if that was the case, you kind of needed to build the script around that where the characters on vacation actually interact with each other because they never run into each other in their storylines. They're very separate from each other. And if there was a kind of thing of like they were all deceiving each other where none of them are having a good time, but they're kind of pretending that everyone is having a good time. I could see that being kind of funny or something, but it just feels thrown in at the end and almost like an oversight that no one actually talks about anything. But I don't think any of the stories about like people learning a lesson really. I don't think it's about like not realizing what you don't really want is the thing. I don't think it's about letting your hair down is a good adventure every once in a while. And it's strange. I like the Hoshi storyline just because of how sort of like strange the resolution is. It's like there was no conflict for Hoshi. Like what a strange thing. Yeah. Another Enterprise special.
Yeah, I mean it was a perfect illustration of what going to a place like that and meeting someone in that situation might be like. It was great. There was no conflict. He wasn't a secret agent or anything. It was just, Hoshi had an interesting weekend. That's all. And that scene at the end, that scene at the end, I find funny because it's like, okay, I can understand Trip and Reed not wanting to talk about what happened to them.
Yes.
Showing up at a casting call for Night of the Roxbury and then getting roofied by some shape changers. I can understand that.
Yeah. I
can understand Hoshi wanting to keep a level of discretion, even though she had a great line about learning new conjugations, which I thought was good. But I feel like Archer should be like, yeah, I met this woman. It turns out she's a body morphed Tellurian or whatever the hell it's called, Tandoran, who was trying to get secret war information about the Suliban temporal Cold War from me. Yep. I feel like that's something that you should talk about.
Yeah, it's going in the reports, I would have to assume. He doesn't want to ruin everybody's good time.
So is that like another? Was she also supposed to be like a man or something? Because they change her DNA, they change her appearance, but they don't change her DNA. Do they just? I can't remember. Do the Dean Stockwell? It's the Dean Stockwell race, right?
Yeah, that's what.
Do they have a
face
thing?
I don't remember them. He says that she has a dot or something. I don't remember Dean Stockwell having a dot in the middle of his head that needed to be removed.
Also, if we thought the makeup last episode was bottom of the barrel alien design, I think the Risons might take the cake for literally being like a sticker on the middle of the forehead.
Just a googly eye sticker that's stuck into the middle of their forehead.
So I was waiting for Trip to lean in and go, is that a half off sticker?
The Risons, are those they must be Risons, right? But why? It must be awful to live on Risa. Basically, is all I could think about, to be those old people and just have these people coming in, and you're just trying to have a nice dinner at your favorite location, and there's some tourists coming by. I don't know what the relationship with the Risens is, but just to get back to Hoshi, there's so little conflict where after they have sex and she wakes up and rolls over and looks at him, he's like, one of them says like, did you use me? And the other one goes, no. And it's just like they hug and they say
No,
goodbye.
it's not even that. He volunteers it. He's like, I hope you don't think that I'm using you because I'm not.
Right.
And she's like, no, I thought I'm fine. They just shake hands and they go their separate ways.
And there's something charming about Enterprise in that way, but at the same I still don't think any of the episodes have matched Breaking the Ice for a kind of like the whole episode is just kind of laissez-faire, and nothing really matters. This one, they're trying here to do something, but it's just the fundamental flaw. I never see what the pitch about the episode is in any of these episodes. I never see what the writer goes in and says, they all go to Risa and blank. It's missing that second part of they all go to Risa. Well, this episode is just they all go to Risa.
I think you could say it's they all go to Risa with one intention and end up with something that wasn't intended, or some sort of monkey's paw scenario or something. Because, Reed and Trip go down there looking to hook up with hot ladies, and they end up getting
drugged,
mugged, and mugged and locked in a basement. They go there looking for hot ladies and making jokes about whether or not they're actually men, and end up getting overtaken by two ladies who turn out to actually be men, and then get stuck in the basement, two men together in their underwear.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not what they were looking for.
Apparently pissing all over each other because they were like, what's this smell? They're just complaining about the smell. The series continues to be enthralled by smells.
No, they're doused in something, aren't they?
Yeah, they get a drink spilt on them or something, right?
No, he had to break one of the wine bottles in order to cut themselves out of the rope. That's what it was.
Which you don't see.
You've got,
you don't see
right,
their
yeah,
escape.
you don't see that.
Yeah.
God forbid they do something, show you something interesting. And another episode where Trip is just stuck somewhere and has to deal with it.
But wait, get back to so not being what you'd expect. I can understand that for Trip and Reed, and I can understand it for Hoshi as the positive flip. I don't think the other stories have anything to do with that, really, which I would maybe say is coincidental that Hoshi and Trip have something to do with it, because Archer has almost no story, and he gets neither what he expects nor what he does not expect. And then Phlox, on the other hand, Phlox just has like a comedy beats or something, I guess.
I completely forgot about Phlox and Mayweather.
Yeah.
Mayweather doesn't get that story because Mayweather, well, I guess he kind of does. But no, he goes into that rock climbing thing knowing the deal.
Yeah. It's
And then the
dangerous. He
rocks
tells
just
them about how
change and
dangerous it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
He comes back and he says, I
completely
really
forgot
want to
about
come
that
back to Enterprise. Yeah. I mean, that's just, I would half agree with you, but I still think that the storylines of Trip and Reed and Hoshi are almost coincidental. That it's like the theme there is so unexplored that it just feels like, well, if Trip and Hoshi, if they go down, what's the exact opposite of what they want? Because that'll be the arc that they get. And, I was disappointed because this to me was one of the more disappointing episodes, because while I was watching it, all I could think about was, imagine if this series really grabbed hold of its premise and went with this.
Right.
And that Risa is a purely hedonistic, pleasure planet, but humanity is not at a point yet where it's not the TNG phase where they can just casually go down there and be okay with it. I put something on Instagram because I was reading the book, but one of the writers was just saying that the original pitch was like, there's going to be struggle between the crew members. They're going to be very human. The people are going to be hooking up with each other. There's going to be like emotional turmoil. I could see
You just described Discovery, I think.
Right, but I could see the proto version of Bashir and Lita on this planet, right? Like if you had two crew members in a relationship who go down to Risa, and I think that Risa at this point only would really work well for this series if it's a kind of perfection that humans are striving for, like this kind of like open sexuality thing that Roddenberry was always pushing. And humans show up and they're like, oh, we heard so much about Risa. This would be great. And they get there and they just can't handle Risa. Like humans aren't ready for this kind of stuff yet. And I was just so disappointed that it's basically Archer sitting in a Holiday Inn reading a book that T'Pol gave him.
Yeah, it's it's another instance of them balking at their concept in favor of just falling back on a Star Trek episode. Because this Rise episode, there's nothing special about it that makes it excuse me, unique to Enterprise. This could have been on any version of the show. You're not learning anything about anybody really. You're not the only plot thing involved is the tacked on temporal Cold War thing, which is just awful.
Yep. Never comes back, so don't waste brain cells about it.
You talking about the woman specifically?
The Tandarans are never mentioned again. So
really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's yikes, guys.
So that'll lower your esteem. But so maybe a criticism of what we're saying here is that we're looking too hard on this episode. Does this episode work as a fun? Does this work as a fun time killer episode for you? Then
I personally think that it does.
Okay.
I don't think it's perfect. Like I said, I enjoyed the Archer thing for what it was until the end. I enjoyed the Hoshi thing. Phlox continues to be the best character on the show.
The scene where he wakes up is the funniest scene in the
really
show.
good.
Yeah. T'Pol's very good there too. There's no need. There's no reason to whisper. He's hibernating.
Very good. The Reed and Trip thing, I could do without that. I think they could have done something more interesting.
That felt the most dated. That's a very their storyline is a very really borderline cringy, strange story. Like for what I was talking about, how Enterprise, if this was a true prequel thing and humans weren't ready, I kind of would have liked their attitude there if it had backfired on them in a way that wasn't they get held up or mugged. You know,
this is too many boobs. I can't deal with all these boobs. There's too many.
You know, if it's kind of a play on, it's kind of a weird. You could do a weird thing with like they're sort of like, at least Trip's like alpha maleness, right? Runs into the Risans who scare the fuck out of him, right? Like he can't handle what's going on in Risa.
Yeah. It's like Ryzen Sex Club's level 1 is like extreme pegging. He's not ready for it.
And Trip's like, didn't ask for this.
This wasn't what I meant.
And I could see something like it's kind of I feel maybe that's too modern for the series, but to have that sort of like good old Texas or Florida boy or whatever the fuck he's from run into something where he can't handle this alien, it's kind of a nice metaphor for like how the Enterprise crew in this first season have occasionally had trouble with the aliens that they run into because they're not accustomed to what's going on and they're sort of learning as they go. If you just tie that metaphor into some sort of like sexuality exploration, Star Trek will never do sexuality very well, but like if you're going to Risa, you kind of have to try, I guess.
Right. Yeah. It's funny when they were going down to the planet. First of all, I thought it was hilarious that they opened the show and T'Pol is talking to Archer and he's like, I don't know. I don't want to go. Can't I just stay here? And T'Pol says, you all drew lots and whoever drew the lots goes down to the planet. And it just happened to be every single main cast member except T'Pol.
This senior management had the deck stacked in their favor, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
why couldn't everyone go? Why don't you just send the shuttle back up and bring other people?
Right.
I guess they have to run the ship or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Like having a Risa episode and not involving T'Pol, I'm shocked that they didn't.
Yeah,
like I said, either last episode or the episode before, I was expecting some sort of T'Pol in a bikini joke from Trek.
No, that's all. You have to. All you're thinking is that T'Pol. It's the one place where they can kind of make fun. They can. The show had two opportunities to kill two birds with one stone here. You can get T'Pol down there in a bikini to show off Jolene Blaylock. And it also gives you comedy where T'Pol in a bikini is potentially funny about things because she would not react to it in character in the way that the other characters would. So you have this space to go, but they're like, no, keep her on the ship. I don't know if if they thought it was too much. Like I could also see the criticism of it's too much to bring her down there and put her in that situation.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy they didn't do that because I think it's too easy. And also their track record with jokes involving her body is not great up to this point.
Yeah.
But I was kind of hoping for a minute when they were going down in the ship, when they were talking about, what are you guys going to do? And they're like, Hoshi, what are you going to do? And she's like, I just want to learn some new cultures. I was kind of hoping she was going to be like, I'm going down there to get laid, man. Something a little bit different. But I think with her story ended up being good. But I was kind of hoping they would spin that ball a little bit, and instead of her being just the mousy conservative one who's not really looking for anything, she was like, no, man, I'm going down there to get it on.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of charming about her story is that.
And they could also, what you're talking about, this exploration of sexuality, if Hoshi had responded to Trip who's like, got his collar open and he's like peacocking for everybody about, being the big dick down in Risa.
He's the captain on this ship. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple wild and crazy guys down there. If Hoshi's like, no, I'm going down there, I'm getting laid, then you can have Trip like recoil a bit at the fact that this woman is so forward about her own sexuality.
Right.
I think that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that's if the crew actually had some kind of interplay with each other, sort of contemporary human values, I think that you could get away with it, especially in 2002. That kind of reaction feels more timely than it does now. In some ways, even though it's only been 20 years, like writing Trip that way now would feel like he's kind of regressed or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. That character, writing Trip that way, not that he's not written as a joke in this episode, because he very much is. They both are, he and Malcolm.
Yeah.
But like, you would only write that character now if you were 100% got your tongue lodged in your cheek that you're making a joke about this.
He would never have a chance to succeed. Basically, like from the beginning that it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And the problem here, I think, is that it's not, because I feel that there's a chance that their plan will work in this episode. I don't feel it's potentially as comedic as it could be. Them getting mugged and sort of the like fear of homosexuality stuff only goes so far, when it would be, I think it would just be more naturally funny if they went down and just, failed on their own. Like it's a failed away mission or whatever. Like they just can't manage it. And instead of taking some sort of artificial outside influence on them, it's their own characterization that causes them to fail. Because I don't know, this is definitely not intentional, but Reed comes across really strongly as the closeted homosexual who's trying to live up to Trip's expectations about what he's supposed to say to him. Like he's really secondary to him. And Trip will just say something like, "Oh man, let's go see these ladies," and it's like, "Oh right, like I also love women. Let me see who's going down here."
He sounds like Steve Carell in the 40-year-old version where they're all talking about women. He's like, yes,
can't wait to get those bags of wet sand in my hands.
Yeah, grab those bags of sand on her chest.
And that would. That's a totally different thing, but it just feels the show is just unwilling to grab what it wants to talk about. Maybe that's a bad metaphor for this episode, but it's unwilling to really grab the bull by the horns and make something of it. Like scared of it. Like it seems like the show is just scared of making a point about something. It's too bad. And if you're not going to knock it out of the park with comedy, I don't know what you're really left with. It's fine as a little time killer, but two of the stories I would argue are filler. The Phlox one is effective filler, I think, but the Archer one is pointless, really.
Yeah. I think they're caught a little bit in between episodic and serialized with this one, because it's not committing to its idea enough for it to be a satisfying episodic episode, but it's also not committing to continuing this Cold War thing to be a satisfying serialized episode. Well, it's like,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The Cold War thing just feels like a Hail Mary at the end of the episode to make it seem like this episode matters in the grand scheme of things.
I don't know if you remember, but in Cold Front, which is where we meet Daniels for the first time, or I guess spoiler, he comes back. But we meet Daniels before he dies or whatever. We were talking in that episode about whether or not the series knew what the Cold War was at that point, and whether or not they were trying to, whether or not Cold Front as an episode was them hinting at something and it was unsatisfying because they didn't give you enough to really, really grab onto, but their intent was just to like sort of wet your whistle with the idea that this is going to be coming back. Or if it was, we have to have a Cold War episode here. Does anyone know what this story is going to be about? No? Okay, just introduce Daniels and we'll see what goes on. This one feels like an even worse version of that, which is that what is the Cold War about? Who is this woman? Right. What does she care about this thing? And why does Archer care? And even down to the minor things about the Suliban. Every time someone says Suliban to Archer, he reacts as if they were responsible for killing 90% of the people on Earth. He's like, the Suliban.
Right.
We ran into them a couple times. We're lucky to be still alive. Every time we've run into the Suliban, they've been fucking jokes. So it's like there's no reason for me to fear the Suliban or act like this is a rational response on Archer's part.
Yeah, I was almost kind of hoping like it was going to be something more interesting, like she was actually from the future, or so, some sort of more interesting thing other than this facial reconstruction thing to hide the fact that she's a Tandorian.
It's TNG's cause and effect, except the incident that causes the loop to repeat is just Archer busting a nut. It's just and then she's like, I have to go back in time to go back to this thing. No, she doesn't. I don't think she's from the future. She just knows the Suliban or something. She's just a Tandoran.
So we were talking earlier. You were saying that there's no explanation for her not being able to meet Archer that night for dinner. Is that supposed to be mysterious?
I think so.
It really isn't.
No, it isn't. Comes across like she's got a husband.
She has, or dinner plans, other pre-existing plans or something. It's really not interesting, and it really does not generate any mystery. And it's not like he doesn't even take the bait for it to be mysterious. He's just like, oh, well, how about tomorrow?
Yeah.
And she's like, fine.
Well, he does
really strange.
He does the very cool, it was just a thought.
Yeah. Just throwing this out here. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's not. Let's see how you react.
I'm not super invested in this either way. I got a good book.
I honestly, at that point, I was like 75% sure they were going more romantic comedy with this, and it was going to turn out that T'Pol had hired him a prostitute.
I mean, yeah, you feel like there's a weird storyline that could, like, T'Pol gave him a gift,
Yeah,
a very personal Vulcan gift. It's the teachings of Surak or whatever, the basis of Vulcan philosophy, and
the bassist for Vulcan philosophy.
Which is he's a killer bassist who replaced Johnny Rotten. That feels like it's almost supposed to be something like T'Pol's insistence that he relax feels like it ties into that in some ways. Like I know that she's looking out for him, but I would almost characterize the Vulcans as like they would be indifferent to whether or not Archer had a vacation. It's like, I'm not going on vacation. Yeah. It's illogical for me to care about you. So what do I care, or what do I think you need? Because I guess maybe you were supposed to be led into this by Archer's had a tough season up to this point or something, but it's just one of these things. None of this is really feeling like this rise in adventure is the culmination of Archer being stressed out for the past 10 episodes. It's just like, we just got here.
Like, well, first of all, on the T'Pol thing, I think you could argue that she cares because the captain being, the captain being more relaxed is
better
therefore
for the ship. Yeah.
Beneficial for the ship and the rest of the crew. So you could, if you want to go that way, you could.
Yep.
But yeah, I like this 3-episode arc to get to Risa doesn't feel like it's like a payoff or anything. Like it's not like these past 2 episodes are the hardest tests the Enterprise has faced up to this point or anything.
It's only an arc because 2 episodes ago someone said, let's go to Risa. And that was the only mention of Risa. So now we're at the end of it.
I would argue Archer has a more relaxing time playing lacrosse with Clancy Brown than he does going to Risa. Aside from the war and walking through the desert part.
Yeah. Trips near death.
Like if it, so that's a perfect example, right? I feel like the way Archer, if you want to do an Archer relaxation vacation story, you have him go down to Risa frustrated and kind of like restless about this vacation, and then he ends up getting caught up in something which caused, he goes to try and find a lacrosse game, he starts playing in that, but then that turns into something else, and then he gets put in this extreme situation, and then at the end he's like, man, I have never had a better time.
Yeah.
Like something like that.
Yeah. Because the captain's holiday adventure on Risa is Picard is reticent to go on vacation, and they force him to go on vacation to Risa. So the first step of the episode is him very bored. He's at a beach location. He's wearing his incredibly short bathing suit, and he's reading a book by the pool. And he's not interested in any of the sexcapades that the Risans are pushing on him. He just wants to sit and read his book, which is a very Picard thing. You can understand that. Maybe Risa's not the best place for him. But it ends with he gets involved with Vash, who is an archaeologist, sort of like treasure hunter character, who is running from Ferengi, and he helps her. His vacation becomes an archaeological adventure to find this rare item that no one has ever seen before. And,
exactly,
and that's how Captain's Holiday ends.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's basically what I just described.
Right, but is Archer?
So they already did it once, and it was a better episode.
Is Archer wouldn't have to do the archaeological thing, but I don't know what Archer would want to do. Really, I think that's the problem with Archer's characterization at this point. Is I don't really know what Archer does in his spare time, except he drinks iced tea and beer and watches water polo. It's like I just don't know what hobby he actually has, which is why the book thing feels fake. Just because I go, Archer doesn't read in his spare time. That doesn't seem right. I don't think that he's a big reader about philosophical stuff.
I mean, you could lean into that and be like, I don't really know what Archer would do. Maybe Archer doesn't know what he would do either.
Right.
So you have him trying a bunch of stuff, and it's nothing's working. He's not. The reading isn't working. The looking at the stars isn't working. But so that's the story: is Archer trying to figure out what it means for him to relax, and then if you want to throw this thing in with the woman, and you can do whatever. But I feel like that's a more clear. And if that's what they were trying to go for, which I don't think it is,
well, here's the problem.
They didn't really do it very well.
Here's the problem with that, right? So say Archer discovers what he likes to do. When you say that, and I'm not saying that you're implying that this is what the episode is, but it feels to me that the resolution there is he goes back to the Enterprise and he's like, all I want to do is be captain of the Enterprise, right? And to me, that feels that feels like every Star Trek captain. And I don't know if that's a good thing and that makes a common theme for all the captains, or if it's just like, can we get a new kind of captain personality in here who's not like in love with his ship and like a captain who's willing to go have sex with Risans as opposed to like hang out on his ship the entire time. I feel like he would be too redundant if he was that way. However, the counter argument I guess people would make with that, he's the first captain. So he's setting the stage for what captains are supposed to value in their lives, which is what everyone else after him copies, and they value the ship over everything.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily where it has to end up, but I think that's probably the first place you'd go. I think you could probably spin that so it's not as standard Star Trek captain as that, but I think at least, even if that's what they did, at least it's telling a story about the character of the guy. Instead of just watching him sitting around in his condo in Florida for 48 hours.
It really is. I just like when he walks into the apartment and he looks up the stairs. Just he's got that little like loft thing above his living room, and he just kind of looks up and I don't know. We'll take a break there, I guess. We'll play a clip from the episode. We'll come back, read some patron thoughts about this one, and then we'll give our final thoughts about 2 days and 2 nights.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sleep well?
Very.
Any thoughts about what you'd like to do today? Risa has a lot to offer.
I could spend the entire day right here. But I'm afraid the shuttle's coming to pick me up in a few hours.
Not a very long vacation.
2 days and 2 nights. That's all we had.
I hope you don't think that I...
Took advantage of me? Not for a minute.
All right, everybody. So thank you very much for listening to our content today. If you enjoyed it, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it very much, you can go to patreon.com/LipinskiFile and support the show there. A couple dollars a month gives you access to other podcasts, other videos that we do. And the captain tier, the highest tier, gets a special thank you right now. So in order of oldest to newest, special thank you goes out to Christian Pouch, Tark Latif, Chris Tinsley, Mike Burnett, Cardinal Doomsday, Joint Mango, Ben Douglas, Neil Brennan, Kyle Barrett, who's extended his name, but I can't see it here, Samuel Custer, Matthew Ross, Nathan Elliott.
Oh, he's going to be so mad.
Eric, I think it comes into play in the comments. Eric Johnson,
Okay.
Andrew Cherlog, Grim Santo, Matt Cutler, Tom Hiles, Dwayne Hackett, Sean, Jordan Cooper, Russell Elledge, Kevin Reyes, Vault 13 Hero, Stephen Minton, David Beardmore, Darth Moss, HH28, Mad Courier 6, Jacob123, Matt Houston, Mike Harris, Nick Sergi, Jakey's Gamer, Patrick Seba, Captain Brazen, Kevin Lowry, Eric's Antoine, Bradley Killens, Corey Martin, Woodrow, and Rune Vendler. Thank you very much for supporting the show. It means a lot. And I wonder if you enjoyed 2 days and 2 nights more than I did. What's your ideal length of vacation?
I don't know. It honestly depends. My first instinct is always shorter. Mm-hmm. It depends on where I'm going. Sorry, I'm coughing a lot tonight. Like we went to Florida last September. We went to Disney World. First time I'd been to Disney World in 20 years. And we went for a week, which at first glance I was like, oh, that's a long time. I haven't gone for a week-long vacation in a while.
Yep.
It's usually like a weekend or maybe 4 days or something. Like when we go up to Sean's condo,
It's a long
we
weekend.
now only usually go for like, a long weekend. We used to go for a lot longer, but now it's just nice to be at your own home. And I think that's kind of what it is. I'm a bit of a homebody, where I'm just as happy on vacation lying on my couch as I am lying on the beach, because I don't like lying on the beach.
Reading the teachings of Sirach, obviously.
Yes. But I think it depends on the place, because like after a week in Florida, I kind of was like, I could do another few days in Florida. Just, I don't know if that was because we were moving the whole time. Like we did all the stuff in Florida. So it was like up early, go at the parks all day, then going to bed late. So it wasn't like we just had a ton of time to relax in Florida.
Yeah.
So I think it depends. Like for going up into the woods in Maine or something, a couple days I'm good, I think.
Camping. One night.
Yeah.
Get it over with. Yeah.
Yourself?
We used to go, I have family in Britain, and we used to go when I was younger for 2 weeks, and that felt like a very long time. Which is, it made sense since we were going like once a year, that's like your whole trip there. So the first week usually went fine, and then the second week was a long time. But I think probably like 7 days somewhere is a good amount of time, and depending on how far you have to go, whether or not that time is taken up by travel. I'm just talking about like the time that you spend somewhere. Yeah, it's probably like 7 to 10 days. It's probably a good stretch of time for wherever you are, unless you're, as you're saying, going camping or something. Then it's like, all right, just 1 day is all I need. I don't need anything else.
When we went to Scotland a few years ago, I think we went for like 10 days.
Yep.
And I could have stayed longer because there was so much travel involved. But by the time we got to where we were going, I think we were only there for like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And it just felt like right when we got to the point where you were ready to like kind of really decompress and relax,
settle down.
It was time to go again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Excuse me.
that's the way it is. I mean, I sort of bring this up as a point here. It's a strange title, right? It's 2 days and 2 nights.
Or 6 days, 7 nights.
I don't know.
Great film with Anne Heche and Harrison Ford.
I don't know if it really means anything. What's the rush to get off Risa? Is there? I'm not aware of why they can't be there for an extended period of time. You got something to do?
I don't know. It takes longer to. It's more complicated to tell a story whether they're there for a week. I don't know.
Yeah, I just bring it up as the time limit seems only to impact Hoshi, really. you know. And
I think you might be overthinking it. I think it's just
like a cute title.
Yeah, like an itinerary title.
Yeah, and it's definitely it's an idiom, like to the hotel speak is 2 days and 2 nights or whatever.
Right, exactly. I think it's more that than anything else.
Yeah, I guess.
Now, if it were like 2 days, 2 nights, Semper Firis Galactica or something,
add some Latin
2
Vox
days,
Sola.
the famous 2 days, 2 nights soliloquy from The Tempest, that might be different, but.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess I'm just bringing it up as it feels like it's adding a time restraint on the episode that I don't think really amounts to anything, but it's just kind of a cutesy title. All right, so let's go to patron thoughts for this one. Thank you very much, patrons, for supporting the show and leaving your thoughts. First comment goes to, I guess I'll mention this now, for the next segment of episodes, which is the first half of season 2. The patron comments are going to be under a 5-sentence limit for everybody, just so that we're running long here and we're just trying to cut down on time. This seems like it was the fairest way.
Haiku only.
Haiku only. If you can rhyme with 2 days and 2 nights, it's appreciated. Just to get everyone a chance to comment, but to be able to finish this in like under an hour is kind of an ideal goal for me. So that's what it's going to be. This is not going to be the case for these ones, though.
Quick question.
Sure.
Is this the season finale?
No, there's one more. The season finale is after this one. Matt Ross says, 2 days and 2 nights, a cliche of shore leave, the reluctant captain, the cocky crew, and the timid crew member having the best time. I saw this in Star Trek, Eurotrip, and WW2 films on a leave. It looks like they were told to dress out of costume. As for Trip and Reed, their impression of the jerky club guys from Saturday Night Live was ridiculous. Them getting robbed and locked in the basement and no one notices is preposterous. It's amazing how the alien world looks like a Marriott hotel. Hoshi is beyond a savant in languages, I guess, and it gets her to hook up win for this episode. All she was missing was some joke about the skill of her tongue. The captain's sedate vacation interrupted by his neighbor takes on a creepy vibe, but what was the goal of that encounter as it derived no information? Porthos, you're beyond useless. So did T'Pol get that Sirach book from Space Amazon, the Doc's mini hibernation and medical grogginess? Haha. But look, Cutler, silly 2 floral Hawaiian shirts out of 5. Final appearance of Crewman Cutler as well.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is.
Like her.
Yeah, she's good. They don't I was under the impression she was dating Phlox from her last appearance, but maybe not. So I guess maybe there was no reason to bring it up here. But like, that's just another thing of like, if you're going to Rise, I feel like Phlox and Cutler going to Rise that makes sense to me. You know, what nothing upset that he had a funny sequence, but I feel he's the only one that we know is kind of in a relationship. I think so. Have him go down. He's the one that wants to explore what that means.
You could even have that be part of the thing when they go down, where it's like, listen, I'm going down there with you, but I'm sleeping for 2 days.
Right.
So, and then,
wake me up before the second night and we'll be out of here.
Yeah.
Corey Martin says, 2 days and 2 nights. Interesting episode in the sense that it's enlightening to see what the crew does with their first taste of shore leave. Hoshi's storyline is probably the most compelling in the whole episode. Her attempts to spend her vacation sans universal translator help back up the believability that she can actually do her job. A bad episode for Trip and Malcolm, who got what they had coming. You would think 2 men from the enlightened future of Earth would be beyond sexually objectifying space aliens. I could have done without Archer's use of poor old Porthos to seduce his neighbor, even though it was an obvious segue to dip back into the temporal Cold War. Speaking of Archer's swinger pad, I noticed that the doorbell intercom is shaped just like the relic for that Picard and Vosh would search for 100 years later. I wonder if that's a nod. Oh, and of course, we found out that something new that Travis sucks at, rock climbing. Yes.
But he didn't use the dog to seduce her because she threw her dog up onto his balcony.
Yes, it's totally her. It's her play.
Which is a baller move. I've never tried that one before.
Do you have anything to say about Travis here? Really?
He's not in the episode. He's the disappears
MacGuffin
when they get there, and then he breaks his ankle or leg or something, and then he's just laid out on the slab for the rest of the episode. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know. We'll wait until the end of the season. Alex Martin says, 2 days and 2 nights. Roll out the Horgons. Horgons, I think is how you pronounce it, which is the relic that previous comment was talking about. In the absence of a holodeck or a bowl of sparkly blue pebbles, it's time for the crew of the Enterprise to get their rocks off on Risa. A reasonably enjoyable episode, primarily due to the fact that the crew get to go off ship and mix things up a little, even though there doesn't feel like any real point to any of the plot threads that Archer and the Tandarin spy twist leads to absolutely nothing. The Flock subplot, while silly, demonstrates again John Billingsley's strength in being able to turn what could be a completely farcical dialogue into something vaguely humorous. I still want to know what he's being forced to eat when he says, "I don't care what it tastes like." It's also sad to mark the final appearance of Kelly Waymeyer as Crewman Cutler. I like the costume design for this episode with the Hawaiian shirts, which illustrates just how much closer to present day the crew of the NX-01 are compared to TNG and Picard's short shorts. Overall, a middling episode with some enjoyable bits. 3 Horgons out of 5. It's true. I thought I had something there. No, I don't really have anything about it. Point Extra G says, 2 days and 2 nights. Well, damn it, we went to Risa. Actually, though, I think it's a fairly inoffensive episode. Less goofy than Captain's Holiday and far better than Let He Who's Without Sin. Most of the episodes are light fluff. The sickbay plotline is pretty humorous. Hoshi gets some hard-to-pronounce alien D. Speaking of dicks, Malcolm and Trip get led around by theirs. Archer's is the only story of substance. Freeing the Suliban seems to keep coming back. I know that the Temporal Cold War arc gets pretty convoluted, but at least they made some attempts at making the arc more than just a few odd episodes.
Calling that a story of substance is very generous.
Yeah, it maybe is more revealing about the other stories that are going on here too. Latte Librarian. I like the character moments in this one. Trip and Malcolm are basically frat guys who are terrified of hitting on a guy by accident, so it was satisfying to see them get robbed, though I would have liked them to have learned some kind of lesson about not assuming alien cultures subscribe to a gender binary. That would probably be too much for this era of TV, though. Hoshi is apparently a language savant, which makes you wonder if she actually needs the translator after all. Archer's plotline wasn't very interesting, so I spent most of his screen time thinking that Porthos looks a little depressed. He should be sniffing way more things considering he's on a planet he's never smelled before. Is it ethical to take a dog on a spaceship like this? Flock should have been way more annoyed at being woken up for an allergy problem, especially since Mayweather looked fine. 3 Vulcan Bibles out of 5.
Yeah, how could nobody else? My girlfriend was watching this one with me, and she said, "How come the other doctor couldn't handle it?" And I was like, "Who? What do you mean the other doctor?" And she meant Cutler. And I was like, "I don't think Cutler's a doctor."
No.
But even still, I feel like if she's taking over for sickbay while he's asleep, she should be able to handle an allergy and an anaphylactic response.
Yeah, I guess she can just do the paperwork or something. But yeah, I mean, it's just a model of how sort of weak that story is. Really, it's just
like she knows where the anti-disease sucky leeches or whatever, the Rigel 7 leech jar is, but
what happened to the leeches?
She can't handle an EpiPen.
Yeah, it's. I know she's in there as a recurring face, but it's almost like she's not necessary to be. I would have liked her and Phlox to go to the planet. God damn it! Like if you're gonna do something, have them go down. Christian Pouch.
I would have had Mayweather break his ankle before going down, so he's now stuck on the ship, wanting to go down.
Right. That's something else too. Not just someone who can actually vent and play against T'Pol, who doesn't need to go down.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. Just have someone up there really sexually frustrated. Just looking out the window all day, just looking at the beaches. Christian Pouch says, 2 days and 2 nights. Why? Trip and Reed have a shockingly blunt tail-chasing attitude that feels out of place. I wouldn't call it offensive, but I would call it dated or maybe just uncomfortable. There's a little else to say because it's just a bunch of things that happen with nothing deeper going on. Best part of the episode is Phlox waking up because John Billingsley is great. Also, they didn't even bother with making a space dog, so they just found the fucking stupidest type of Earth dog they could. 2 days and not even 2 shits out of 5.
Good point. Yeah.
It's one of those Mexican strange hair dogs.
One of those ones where like the weird ones always have their tongue sticking out.
Their teeth are all screwed up and their tongue sticks out. That's breeding for you.
I know.
Let's see. Kyle Barrett has extended his Patreon name to make this already interminably long part of the podcast even longer. Says, 2 Days and Two Nights. A surprisingly enjoyable and funny episode. The plot is vapid, but allows for some really fun character interactions. The chemistry between the crew is great, particularly in the shuttle pod at the start, and they feel truly like normal modern people rather than stuffy Star Trek officers. Trip and the clearly closeted Malcolm's delirium might have been taken slightly too far, but it's just locker room talk, right, fellas? Those aliens strip them down to their underwear and tie them up, but the joke's on them because Reed's into that kind of thing. He was hoping one of them would start spanking him with a cricket bat while the other one pissed in his mouth. Hoshi's scenes are cute, but she's clearly blind. Oh, it tastes like a kiwi, does it? No fucking shit, Hoshi, because look at it for a second. It is a kiwi. Archer's
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Strawberry and the kiwi. Archer's storyline is the notable weak point and it lacks any form of resolution. It's as if Kalo was planned to be a recurring character, but that never happens. Despite that, this is the best episode set on the cum-drenched shores of Risa, although that's not saying much. Nevertheless, a strong 3 out of 5.
That white stuff in the surf isn't foam.
That's not that's not sea foam. That's excitement. Yeah, the fruit thing is just so strange. Just you'd expect that the director would be like, she can't call it a strawberry, right, guys? Like, it's in frame. We can clearly see that it's a strawberry. Or give her something else. Give her like a Mentos.
That reminded me of. Did you ever see the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie?
No, with Sean Connery.
Yeah, it's one of the worst movies. Top 5 worst comic book movies ever made.
Yep.
And there's a scene where Captain Nemo debuts to his teammates this new invention of his, which is it's a car. It's just a car.
Yep.
And everyone's like, "Whoa! Oh my God! Whoa! What do you call this?" And he goes, "I call this an automobile." And it's like, what?
Right.
It was that kind of thing where it's like, you're just saying what it is.
Yeah.
Come up with something more interesting, guys.
This tastes like a kiwi. Kiwi. This is what we call a kiwi. It was just a.
He had that line locked and loaded. Whatever she said, she was if she had said rutabaga, he was going to be like, ooh. Rutabaga is the word for kissing where I come from.
Is it an accomplishment that is it good or bad that Hoshi's storyline is the way it is? Should there have been some kind of is it more interesting, even if it's more cliche, to have that be some sort of youthful fling romance story? I don't know if Star Trek
is that not what it is though.
No, because she's, or in the sense that it doesn't end with nobody using each other. Like he's more insidious in the sense that you're saying, where he's got that line planned out. Like
I see, sure.
I don't think Star Trek can write that kind of stuff, but I wonder, are we just being incredibly cynical with we're like, yeah, Hoshi's story was the best because nothing happened in it.
Well,
you know,
I mean, would it be better if it was like, oh, Hoshi drank too much and then maybe made a questionable decision with some guy from the hotel?
Well, it depends on.
I don't know.
It's probably not in the context of the rest of this episode, but if this episode was about something, maybe you know, like maybe that's worth something there. Or Star Trek, I don't think Star Trek will ever have sex with regret as a plot line in it. Like, I don't think that's a very Star Trek-y outlook on things. So I don't know. I guess it's fine. Like, it was charming, and I felt good for her, you know, which is maybe the best place that you wanted to go at. But I almost, at the same time, I did like it just because she never brings it up and no one mentions anything. But it goes against your point of like, if she had brought it up and Trip had not reacted badly to it, I don't know what the story is there either. You know,
right,
if Hoshi mentions that she got laid and everyone's just like, oh, good for you and bad for me, it just feels weaker or something at that point.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Why did you like why was that story satisfying, I guess?
I don't know.
They don't waste a lot of time with it.
I think because it was. Yeah, it was fairly efficient, and it was. I found it to be a nice exploration of what it might be like in that sort of situation with someone who, with those kind of, you know, it's the kind of thing where it's like, if everything has a dark lining to it, then nothing matters.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So if it's like everybody went down to Risa and everybody had a insidious encounter with somebody, it's like, oh, that's no fun,
Right.
you know. And it's just like it is kind of it does act in a way as a counterpoint to Trip and Reed because they're so cocksure going down and they're kind of giving her a hard time about languages, and then she actually has a great time and she just keeps it to herself. And yeah, I think it's nice.
It's extremely Roddenberry, that storyline, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, because it's not a good story, but that's what he would have wanted out of Risa.
That's true.
He would want
no
the characters
conflict,
to go have sex and there's no big deal and everything's just, it all just works out. Everyone gets laid and no one cares. There's no problem whatsoever that stems from it. So in that sense, it's a very pure, if you consider Roddenberry to be Star Trek, it's a very pure Star Trek story. I just, I agree with the mix. I like the mix. If that was the case, I almost wish that you had just stripped it down to 2 stories to kind of pair off against each other there instead of having the entire cast. But this is all.
Yeah, I hesitate to say that because I think if there were only 2 stories, I think the Hoshi story is the perfect length.
Right.
I think if you get into more of that, then you're kind of losing the charm a little bit, and then there has to be more to it, and there has to be some sort of conflict. Like you probably could combine the Hoshi story and the Archer story and take Archer and the girl out of it, but take the events and make the events the same.
Right.
And that essentially would be what the longer version of the Hoshi story is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there would be more interactions, and then it would be, he's got this ulterior motive. Blah. I think for what they're trying to do, where they're giving little bits of story to each of these characters, I think it works well that way.
If you were on the writing staff and you were given this assignment and they gave you the outline, right? So you basically know what's going on. Would you have written this as a lighthearted comedy romp, or would you have tried something different with it? I just wonder if our perspective here, you seem to be coming at this episode with the sense of like you enjoy it for the sort of lighthearted rompiness that it is. And I'm criticizing it at the same time, maybe unfairly, for I kind of wanted it to have a point to it. Like I really do like the idea of the front of this being humans' first visit to Risa. I just think there's something there that you can really play with. But I'm not opposed to a comedy romp, but I just don't know which one I would actually prefer. And it seemed like you were kind of leaning the other way as to you wanted.
Well, I'm just going off of what they did do.
Sure.
And I think what they did do is fine.
Yeah.
That's the road that they chose, and I think it's moderately successful. I think, like I said, I think they don't commit to it enough for it to be a satisfying standalone episode, and they don't commit to the serialization for it to be a satisfying serialized thing.
Yeah.
And so they have these. I think the setup is fine, having these different groups of people, all with different intentions, going down. But again, execution-wise, Archer isn't clear at all about what he wants or what his purpose in the story is. Reed and Tucker. I keep wanting to say Reed and Malcolm, but it's the same person. Reed and Tucker they don't go far enough with it, I don't think. Yeah. And I think it leans a little bit too much on, watch out, that chick might have a dick.
Yeah.
Where I think there's plenty of other stuff they could. Because that being said, I don't think that is not something they would say. Like I do feel like that is an honest thing for them to say, because they do come off as frat dudes.
Yeah.
And I do think it's part of the point is that they are
unevolved humans at this point.
Yes, exactly. So even though it is not great, social commentary wise, looking back at it, I don't think it is disingenuous that they would speak like that.
No, if their plot resolved that, it's totally acceptable to have them talking that way.
Yes,
if it taught them something, or if they sort of like had a lesson from it, instead of just getting robbed.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it stands is they're both worried about hitting on a someone that might turn out to be a man. Then they end up hitting on someone who turns out to be a man and they end up getting robbed because of it. Like, it's not, they don't learn anything. They were right in their assumptions that we shouldn't hit on people who turn out to be men, you know? So there's no evolution. They're not learning anything. They just come out of it looking like assholes, but they haven't changed their viewpoint at all.
Right. Yep. Let's see here. Woodrow says, 2 days and 2 nights. I'm unsure how Kayla's inexplicably transparent attempt at spying justifies Archer's strong-arming and detaining her. There's nothing to lose by answering her questions. They clearly both dislike the Cabal. Archer merely needed to provide his captain's log, and Kayla would have been satisfied with him for the rest of the night. Oddly, T'Pol had no reaction whatsoever to Archer, nervously sending her a Tendarin bioscan. Maybe she figured he was doing what Trip and Reed should have. Risa is an open port, after all. T'Pol clearly feels that Archer is getting too attached. When a woman encourages you to read her Bible, Quran, or teachings of Surak while telling you to get out more and visit the free love planet, she's saying, please don't ask me out. 1.5 out of 5.
That is kind of funny where it's like you're going on vacation and your coworker makes sure to send the Book of Mormon with you. It's like, this will help you relax. And it's like, maybe we should talk about this when we get back.
That is true. I mean,
or Dianetics or something.
The Kayla and Archer thing, I didn't even really think about it because of how unimportant it is. But what is their conflict between the two of them? She never even admits to being what he says she is. Right. Yeah.
Like, if anything, she could have just, knocked him out because she was afraid of the situation.
Yeah.
And was not actually what he thought that she was.
Strange. It's just such a weak story. Captain Brazen says, after some build-up, mentions, and name drops, the result of Enterprise's light serialization is a resounding, Risa. Why does it have to be Risa? Fan service is cringing when it's consistently in your face, just like Into Darkness features a dead Tribble. Although the fan service here isn't blatant, it's just lazy autopilot writing. You could call this planet anything else besides Risa, perhaps Pleasure Planet XXX or Malcolm Reed's Sweet Erotic Pineapple Delight, and it would still work. It has a nice setup for an ensemble episode like TOS's Shore Leave, but they don't do anything except small vignettes. Kelly Waymeyer makes her last appearance as Elizabeth Cutler, which is a shame because I rather like the character. Rest in peace, Kelly. Archer's story with the leopard-spotted woman is half-baked. Trip and Malcolm trying to get their Horgons pleasured by aliens in a bar makes me remember my college days in alien bars, of course. We had the good sense not to think strictly with our dicks in hand. The best parts are the comical moments with Phlox waking out of hibernation, reminding me what I may look like while raising my 4-year-old. Oh, and apparently, Hoshi has more game at betting an alien than any guy on the ship. Hoshi wins the episode. You go, girl. 2 stripped humans to their skivvies out of 5.
I actually thought... only for a minute, because I realized that the spots weren't the same, but I thought maybe they were doing like 100 years in the past, things change thing. I thought maybe she was going to turn out to be a Trill.
I thought she was Trill as well. Yeah.
Yeah. In which case I was like, oh, well, that's actually kind of interesting, because you do have that sexuality component involved, whether it's, like they did with Dax, where she previously was in the body of a man and all that kind of stuff.
Honestly,
and how that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, a Trill thematically makes sense with unevolved humans, right? Because Trill are the opposite. Trill are like the experienced creatures who have like been through all of this stuff and are not sort of biased or uptight about things.
It would make more sense for a Trill to be involved in the Malcolm and Tucker storyline, I think. Right. Yeah. It's too bad. That would have been fun. Yeah.
Thomas Darnell says, 2 days and 2 nights. I hope you guys have a lot of fun with the semi-intentionally funny Trip and Malcolm plot. This is almost every character at their worst and probably the worst episode of the season, but at least they're paying off those Risa hints they've been dropping. This is Code of Honor-esque, where most of the entertainment is the extent of the critical fail. And then final...
I was just going to say, I did enjoy from the Trip and Malcolm story that Trip's George W. Bush, Brad Pitt voice did dip slightly into Inglourious Bastards dialogue, where he was like, yeah, well, we're still fighting in a fucking basement.
He did. Benjamin Espinoza says, How do you screw up a trip to a pleasure planet? How? This was just awful, and I don't understand how this was made it out of the writer's room. Hoshi is the only one who actually has a good time, and even her relationship was joyless. I felt like I was watching a bad SNL night at the Roxbury skit with Tripp and Malcolm at their creepiest.
They even do the thing with like the you, me thing. They even do that.
Yeah.
That has to be on purpose.
I'm pretty sure it's intentional, but
yeah.
Again, they don't. If they're going to make that intentional, you have to play up that their clownishness is what gets them in trouble. That's the point of that sketch.
Right.
Of course, they get robbed, and we're treated to another episode of Captain Underpants. And then there's Archer. There's no way that Kayla's dog Rilo got to Archer's balcony. How? It was shown to be several floors down. At least Rilo and Porthos had more chemistry than Archer and Kayla. Why would anyone ever want to vacation with these people? Hoshi is the only one who seemed halfway written like a real human being. Poor Mayweather can't even go to the pleasure planet and avoid bodily injury. Worst of the season, one bad forehead tattoo out of 5.
I guarantee you, if you talk to a writer of Enterprise about this episode, about the dog thing, the answer would be author license, where it's like, well, we didn't write this into the script, but our understanding was that the dog was an alien dog.
Yeah.
And so it could jump really high. And so it just jumped from the balcony onto Archer's balcony. So makes perfect sense.
It had wings in the script. It was the first thing we had to cut. For budget
exactly.
reasons. Yeah.
Once we saw we had about $25 and a package of 10-cent off stickers to use for this episode, we decided we had to cut the dog wings.
A lot of harshness towards this one, which I can't say is a bad thing, but
the responses to these past few have been interesting because this is not one that I would say is a 1 because it's not. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm hard pressed to give any episode from this season a 1, just because they are all very competently made.
Yeah,
there's nothing that just screams, "Whoa, we really let this one get away from us." That a lot of other seasons of series do.
Yeah, you haven't given. Neither of us have given a 1 this season to any of these things. Well, thank you, patrons. I'm going to give it. I think it's a 2 for me. It's a weak 2 if you're looking at it in terms of this should have been about something. It's a fairly strong 2 as a kind of like goofy filler crew has an adventure episode. I think both of them are kind of like subpar versions of what those stories could have been, particularly more so in the sense that if you wanted this episode to actually be about something, it's even worse. But as just kind of a funny attempt at comedy, I think it's like a decent episode. It's a fairly strong 2. It's just slightly below average. It was mostly because of the Archer storyline, which is, I would describe it as the central storyline, and it's got nothing going for it.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, I think if you view it for what it's trying to do, it's fine. But if you look at it as wishing that it was more thematically relevant or serialization relevant, then it definitely fails. But as far as like a light, quote unquote, comedy episode, it's fine. It's not. I wouldn't say it's good.
Yep.
But it's not dog shit. So I would say I'd say it's a 2.
2 for both of us. That's it for that one. We'll be back with the season finale, which is Shockwave Part 1. It's the first part of a one-parter, but because it divides seasons, we won't be doing the 2 episodes together. We'll just do Shockwave Part 1 for the next one. And then we'll leave you with a cliffhanger, thoughts about how that went. And then we'll have and then we'll have a Enterprise Season 1 wrap-up, I think. So that's it. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hope you enjoyed the content today. Check out all the links down below. Join the Discord if you're so inclined. Support the show on Patreon if you're so inclined. Thank you very much.
I would like to also mention, I can't remember who said it in the comments, but yes, these are magnets on my boom arm. They're not giant portraits in the background.
I was just hovering.
So they're not in the background. They're actually on the.
I had one too, but
for the people listening, obviously, I have these 2 magnets of postage stamp portraits of Dracula and the Wolfman. I can't remember who painted them. oh God, I can't. He's a really, really fantastic painter, but my mind is slipping on his name.
I have one as well, which is working out great for the audio only listeners, but it goes right there. But unfortunately, I think if it gets in the way, it gets in the way of Quark in the back, which is, do you recognize that cup, Quark, in the back?
I actually can't see you because of the way our setup works,
That's
but
right.
I'm going to say yes. It's probably the same cup that I have.
Yeah, from Sean's basement. It's that cup, yeah. I guess that's it. Do you have anything you want to say, Clay, before we go?
We just had a new Rotten Horror Picture Show come out this past week. We were doing David Cronenberg's The Fly. And then next week or this week, I don't remember. Is this coming out Thursday?
This comes out Thursday.
Okay, so next week will be a new badass, 2 good episodes, I think. Bullet for Bullock and The Trial, I believe. The Trial is cool. It's Batman gets put on trial inside Arkham Asylum by all of his villains. They're trying to find out whether or not he is responsible for all of their misdeeds. And is actually, Sean talks quite a bit about how he realized he swiped quite a bit from that episode for White Knight.
It all subconscious. It all soaks right in. Check out Badass. That'll be there. You can check out Rotten Horror Picture Show. It continues it. They just did The Fly, as he said. I guess that's it. Yeah, we'll be back with the season finale for Enterprise, which is Shockwave Part 1. And after that, we'll move on to Season 2. All that stuff. So thank you guys very much for listening. We'll see you next time.